Malcolm X, Harriet Tubman.
Once referred to as a social cancer, by the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, as well as a pandemic, by the Office of the United Nations High Commission for Human Rights, most people affected by this social menace, racism, have once or more times, dreamt of a world free of racial discrimination. A world with real, equal opportunities. But the question is, can this dream ever be achieved? Perhaps in answering this question, we should start by asking a few simple questions. That is, how can racial discrimination back then be compared to the racial discrimination now? That is, have things really changed? Have things gotten better or worse? Or better still, is there more hope for a racially equal world now than it was about a century ago? Additionally, what are the challenges currently impeding the complete elimination of racial discrimination from our social fabric? Let's take a close look at these three pictures, and analyze each of them, and the forms of racial injustice that they illustrate of different centuries. The first picture, by Mauricio Rugendas, depicts the punishment of a slave in Brazil. This is a picture illustrating manifestations of racial discrimination in the 19th century. During this time, racial discrimination was practiced so openly and involved a lot of brutality. But take note of the word open. In the picture, we can see a single white man, surrounded by many black men, but still being able to command an injustice, and remain unquestioned. The second picture, obtained from Becky Little's publication on the History.com site, symbolizes a significant transition in the history of racism, when blacks had their first chances to participate in matters of administration. This was towards the end of the 19th century, when black voters passed through a lot of persecution and limitations, discouraging them from participating in their civil rights. This was famously referred to as the Reconstruction period. However, towards the 20th century, the representation of the African Americans into the U.S. Congress, for instance by Edward Brooke, began to face little limitation and obstacles, paving way for more representatives. Nevertheless, more than 2 decades into the 21st century, there is still underrepresentation of blacks in the state offices. The third picture, obtained from the Foreign Policy site, in a 2020 publication by Pam Brueggermunder and 8 other authors, best depicts the state of racial discrimination in the 21st century. In the picture, we can see a white silhouette, positioned in the middle, to symbolize control of all global happenings, but blindfolded and seemingly comfortable with the blind on. This is a perfect analogy of the ignorance that surrounds racial discrimination. This ignorance can either be looked as deliberate, with most white supremacists disregarding the urgency of the issue and cleverly perpetrating and covering up racial injustices. For example, African Americans have been granted an opportunity to participate in U.S. politics and administration, while there is still high levels of underrepresentation in other fundamental fields like the judiciary. Again, how many times have you heard of police brutality and controversial killings perpetrated by the police on black suspects? I know, many times. But these issues have slowly dissipated into thin air. It's all forgotten, and in very rare cases have police actually been charged. Have you asked yourself why? This ignorance can also be looked at as non-intentional for reasons that there are several issues currently facing the globe depriving the necessary focus that racial discrimination requires, as you can see from this 2019 statistics obtained from Chatham House, that racial discrimination is not considered even among the top 3 issues facing the globe at the moment. This makes it impossible for deliberation on racial equity to be given sufficient focus. The issue is even many world leaders, who are expected to be the instrument and voice of change, perpetrating and encouraging racism themselves. Even though there is promising trajectory from the 19th to the 21st century, with racism growing more subtle, the same trajectory also heads towards a direction in which it is going to be much more difficult to overcome this menace. Because, when is racism ever going to be considered an important global issue? When are supremacists ever going to stop ignoring the fact that their acts are detrimental to the dreams to grow towards social equity? When are all global leaders going to genuinely unite to fight this monster? At this point, and given these facts, unfortunately, Only time will tell. What is your take on this? Please leave your comment below. Also, do not forget to subscribe for more amazing content. Thank you.